start doing impersonation, put a hood on or something. And poor Mary Ann, who I was with, they shouldn't know her because she's not an actress, and she's not a public person, not a celebrity. They kept shouting, "Who are you? What are you wearing? My God, those heels!" So I'm so sorry, I don't know why you're suffering. It's just, it's hilarious. I'm having a time of my life. So then we got to the door, and there was Rick McCallum, who you may know was the producer of the prequels. And he said, "Yeah, where are you people? I've been waiting for you." I said, "Well, we're trying to get in." And anyway, never mind, we're here now. And he said, "You've got to come and speak to CNN." I said, "Oh yes, they're live, they're live." So he dragged me over to CNN and said, "Hey everybody, this is the Phantom Menace." And he went, "Oh really? Who are you?" He said, "Well, I heard McCallum and produced the whole thing." Anyway, that's the way it went. And eventually I got to get in the door, and I had my ticket. I'd sent Mary Ann ahead with her ticket, she was okay. But Rick didn't have a ticket. He didn't need tickets to produce all 3 films, and they wouldn't let him in. That was lovely, that was really good. So I had to go upstairs, get George Lucas, and say, "If you come down, tell the guy at the door that this is your producer," because he won't let him in. And George said, "Well, wait." And then Prince Charles came, and it all ended happily ever after.
You can go right over here. I can't see, but I know there's a person there. There you are. Thank you very much. I was hoping that you'd discuss what it was like in 1977 after finding out that this was going to continue, and your feelings and what had happened internally as well as obviously externally. I could have Googled it, but I could care less. There are 30 years for this answer. What was it like in regards to having Clive Rebel take over and what was going on in your life, what happened, what caused for you not to be available, and what was it like to reprise and re-record when the decision was made to completely eliminate Mr. Rebel from the film and to have you replace him? It's very dear to my heart to find the answer.
Okay. You have Googled it, haven't you? Yeah, well, I guess you know that I wasn't in Mission. I didn't sort this out. So practical. There we go. I wasn't in The Empire Strikes Back, and it was Clive Rebel's voice, and yet to be confirmed actress in a mask, or a monkey in a mask, or something anyway, playing the Emperor. And I hadn't seen that film when I was asked to play the Emperor. At one point during the filming, Richard, who's a very nice man, Markman, said, "Ian, I'm going to give you a tape of Clive Rebel's voice. You did your character, yeah. And if you can get close to it, maybe George will let you keep it." So I was a little shocked because I'd been talking like that, for a few weeks. But of course they were thinking about continuity and coordination and all the rest of it. And so I just went on doing the voice, and no one said stop, or why don't you try something else? Because it seemed to belong to the character. Once I saw that face, I said, "Oh, he looked like a toad, he really ought to sound like one." Guttural, and I sort of kind of taught myself to speak, as it were, it's early in the morning, but on the vomit, It's just sort of it comes from there. And anyway, blithely going on, and we did the ADR, the additional dialogue recording session. The dialogue in those days was not additional, it was wholehearted, and practically the whole movie was post-synced, just the nature of the sound system then. And I don't think THX was fully developed, so they didn't have the equipment they have now. Nowadays, mostly the stuff that we do is on set, and that's the stuff you hear, with a few modulations here and there, but it wasn't there. So I was doing my part with George, and in the room was Steven Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy. And they were very nice. And so I did a bit of all that stuff. And Steven suddenly said, "Oh my God, you're so evil." Thank you very much, nice to meet you. And I thought, but much later, I thought, well, in a sense, George get his 2 closest colleagues and friends there, maybe to see if they thought the voice was a good idea. Anyway, I guess they did, so I was very happily stuck with it. And of course, I thought, to get back to your question, that was the end of it, as we all did, after Return of the Jedi. And when eventually Dave Prowse threw me down that hole, say to George, I mean, you know, is he really dead? I mean, has he come back in some other form? Maybe as a lizard, or a public school boy, or and he laughed at that. I thought maybe I'm onto something, but no, they just thought it was a good joke. And then he said, no, he's dead. And unhappily, as you now know, he has remained so, as a result of being thrown into galactic hell. Then the prequels happened, and it was like having my birthday all over again. I mean, who could be so lucky? And George, of course, hadn't worked that out. He thought he was going to get the oldest actor in the world, and then if he didn't even think he was going to do prequels at that stage. But if he had gone back in time, he would obviously get an actor who was the right age to play Palpatine, and then grow into, and maybe get the older actor back later, etc., etc. But because I was the wrong age then, in my late 30s, I could be the right age later, if you would follow that. So it was me in my 50s being Palpatine in his 50s, and then graduating towards the mask, and the old guy with, well, was he really old? I used to think he was about 130, but he was a sort of creature and a monster, not really an old man. So it was amazing all over again. And of course, the prequels, in a sense, were more interesting for me, because I could develop the character that you'd already seen. Although Jedi, of course, was immense fun in the throne room with Mark and Dave. And no, there were only two of them. That was the great joy of Jedi. Long answer to your question. But then it was a long question. Thank you.
Right over here.
Hi, Ian. So what makes Star Wars great are the parodies, especially on the characters. I was just curious if you've seen like shows like Robot Chicken and The Emperor, and how do you feel about those?
I have. I think they're great. I kind of wish I was doing them. But no, I think they're very good. George was very good like that. I mean, he encouraged quality spin-offs, you know, good ideas, and he has a great sense of humor about the films and about himself. And that's one of the really good things about the Star Wars universe. I mean, it's endlessly recyclable in other forms. And now, of course, it belongs to Disney. It's just endlessly recyclable. Far away, far away, far away, forever, forever, forever. And we're very grateful to them for doing it. And maybe one day they'll get an old emperor out of his hospital bed and stick a couple of yellow eyes in him and get him to reprieve something. Or do something new. But no rumors, no spoilers, nothing's happened yet, and you will know before me.
Is there somebody that seems a little bit? Nobody over there. All right, right over here.
Hi, thanks for taking the questions. Do you have any fun stories from on the set, either of the prequels or Return of the Jedi?
Well, it was one long fun sequence, really, in lots of ways. Making films is great fun, and if you're lucky to be in them, you know, a kind of privilege in a way. But it's also basically absurd, and it's nuts. I mean, there are almost as many people as I'm seeing today behind the camera, you know, where we're all being highly concentrated. The great thing about these people is that they're all super talented and very good at what they do. So you get an electric level of concentration when you're doing your scene. But when we were doing the prequels, the first one, Phantom Menace, was filmed not far from the centre of London at Leavesden, which subsequently became the great studio that housed Harry Potter. But when we were there, they were just building it. And it's usual when you're making a movie that they build next week's sets alongside the set that you're in, you know, saves time, saves money, etc. Here they were actually building the studio while you were in it, and around you there were big sort of scaffolding poles everywhere. And every now and again someone would, you know, fall off a ladder, the scaffolding pole would hit the deck. And so you would naturally sort of stop. You know, well, okay, get that sorted out and then we'll do it again. And the first day they said, yeah, whatever happens, don't stop. So, you know, the whole world, it was like Armageddon. Crashed around all of our ears. especially on the Ken Squire scenes, as we went on. But of course they knew that they could subsequently revoice if anything happened. So the atmosphere was strange and slightly hysterical. And then there's the whole business of the green and the blue screen, which some people have trouble with. I was lucky. I didn't have a lot of it. I didn't have a lot that I had to focus on. But quite often you're just looking not at a person, but a spot on a stick. And you have to say, is that Natalie? Or is that just a person that I haven't been introduced to? Or is that just a stick? So, but when you get that sorted out, you can sort of do it, professional and so on. But I remember when we were up in the Senate pod, remember that scene? And to do those scenes, they were all done individually, and then lots of stuff added later, of course. But we were very, very high off the ground, way, way up. And Natalie and I were in one pod for one sequence. And I was in my costumes, okay. And she had these enormously difficult headdresses to wear, which used to hurt, she's up there. And she's so nice. And I could see she was in sort of agony. I said, well, they'll cover everything. We'll go down and they'll cover everything. Don't worry about it. And then George shouted up, that camera that's whizzing around your head is doing your close-ups. Then we all panicked again, and Natalie very bravely tried not to show pain. And I said, we've got to get someone to help you with your headdress. And she said, very sweet, she said, no, the lady in the wardrobe, she doesn't have a head for house. So she was thinking of this poor woman who had to be shot up on one of those things, in order to adjust her headdress. So she very bravely stuck it for the whole morning. We were up there doing it, and managed not to show pain. We weren't any reshoots. That was one of the sort of mad things about it. The most fun mad thing in Return of the Jedi was Mark Hamill. Because when I was doing all that stuff, and the camera was on me, and he was the other side of the camera, being very helpful. He's a great fan of an English comedian, no longer with us sadly, called Tommy Cooper, who was wonderful, wonderful, funny. And he was a magician. His tricks always went wrong. That was the basis of his act. And so he'd always do the abracadabra thing, and nothing would happen, And his phrase was sort of, just like that, and then nothing would happen. And so Mark, who was a fan of this comedian, and indeed of English comedy generally, that hasn't changed. At the other side, I occasionally just went, just like that, just like that. As I was trying to confine him to oblivion. So, which is why, of course, I didn't confine him to oblivion, So his sense of humor won out in the end.
We go right over here again.
What's that? He did. But like, they're all just like, that's what I thought. Something really emotional. The reason why is because, okay, you know how in the different
So due to a It's not on yet. I'll wait for it. He's going to activate it. Chris Sabat will not be with us today. He had a last-minute emergency. He had to go home on a plane, but that is okay because we actually have two absolutely fantastic panelists that are going to give you a fantastic panel. I've had the pleasure of paneling them. Awesome, thank you so much. Paneling them on Friday, and. But first I want to make sure that they get a nice warm welcome from you guys. So I want to set some ground rules real quick. This is going to be real easy. There's two microphones, one over here and one over here. If you have any questions, you just come up to the microphone and ask a question. I prefer if you just ask one question. That way we have a lot of people with a lot of different questions. So try to just pick your one best one and ask that question. If you're not the person asking the question at the microphone and you're standing behind them in line, we would prefer that you sit behind them in line. That way the people that are sitting on the sides can still see with all of these people standing. So if you're not asking the question, just sit or kneel. That way we can keep sight lines open. And then with the questions, feel free to ask any sort of question, but don't ask them to like kiss you or do anything weird like that. We would like to keep them up here and you guys down there. There will be options to have autographs and photo signings with them at photo ops after the panel. So with that said, we'd love to get you guys warmed up. I'm about to bring out Gray Delisle and Janet Varney, so these are two incredible performers. But first, we'd like to get you guys warmed up. So let's start with a really low little golf clap, like Tiger Woods just hit a little putt. Fantastic. All right, now let's do like a medium clap, like, oh, this is pretty good, like medium. All right, now as soon as I say their names, I need you to go to a total 10 with your clapping and cheering. Bring them out, Gray Delisle and Janet Varney.
Chris comes out. What? Is it not? I was like, don't tell him he's not going to come, because then no one will come.
I know. If anyone needs to quietly and sadly file out because they came to see Chris, we understand. But you know what? I've done a lot of conventions with Chris, so I know some of his answers. If you want to ask me some questions, anything I don't know, I'll just make up. Most of it will be very positive compliments towards Gray and me. Yeah, so you can hurl those questions at us too. We'll see how we do.
Well, Janet, I kind of wanted to ask you, beyond Korra, the Legend of Korra, have you done some face acting beyond that?
Face acting.
There's a name for it.
Yes, my face is acted in, yeah. No, I bring my body to the table most times, too. It usually comes along with the face. It's weird. I can't separate them one from the other. Yeah, that's primarily what I do. I hosted a show called Dinner and a Movie for 7 years. That was on TBS. We would make dinner and watch a movie and do like silly sketches and stuff. And I've guest starred on a bunch of cool live action shows like How I Met Your Mother and Bones and Psych and Better Off Ted, for those of you who I talked to about that today. And I'm on a show called You're the Worst, which is a super funny comedy on FX. And then on IFC, starting on Halloween, I star as a sheriff who has just moved into a small town to find that it is inhabited by demons. I'm in it with John C. McGinley, who's on Scrubs and a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, it's created by a Simpsons writer, so it's like funny, scary. It's gonna be awesome. So
It's called
please
Stand
check that
Against
out.
Evil.
And it's called Stand Against Evil. And Gray, I just say that because I forget what things are called.
Yesterday,
And
she's
I
like,
just
I want
leave
to
it a
do this show on
mystery.
IFC, so
I just leave it a mystery.
I was like, tell him what it's called.
Yeah, no, that's because I'm dumb. So I just want to put that out there right now.
I'm like the anti-public. I'm like the publicist's worst nightmare. Not only do I not say what the show is, but I like say something really offensive and awful. I was doing Comic-Con and I'm doing that new DC superhero girls show, and I play Wonder Woman, and this little 3-year-old girl came up to the mic and she's like, do you make your own costumes? And I said, oh, honey, you're so cute. I said, we don't make the costumes. Somebody your age makes the costumes in a country far, far away.
Yeah.
And the publicist is like standing off to the side, and she just was like, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm getting fired. Oh, it'd be so funny if I got fired. Yeah. But you know what? Wonder Woman's all about truth.
Oh, there you go. You turn it around. You tell the tough truths. That's right.
All right, so we've got these microphones, and this is a Q&A panel, so you are welcome to come up and start firing away with whatever questions you may have.
Star Butterfly, where are you going? I'm your mother, Queen Butterfly. Oh, you're just moving seats. All right, but that's fine.
Or possibly coming to the microphone.
Oh, yes, she's gonna. Oh, a star. I didn't know you were going to ask me a question. That's wonderful. Maybe not me, maybe Janet. I don't know.
We're both ready. We might even answer simultaneously. You won't be able to understand what we're saying because we'll both give answers at the same time.
This is a question for Gray Delisle. What was it like voicing Emily Elizabeth?
Well, I got to work with John Ritter, who is amazing and so sweet, and they had a big trouble.
They had a lot of trouble casting that voice because, you know, it was like the voice of a little girl's best friend, so they couldn't have him be sort of like this creepy sounding man, you know, hanging around with this little girl all day. So John was perfect because he was just such a sweet, non-threatening, wonderful person, and yeah, he was great. It's funny because he was so super nice that it was just ridiculous, and I remember telling someone I was only like 20 years at the time or whatever, but I said, he is so nice, John Ritter's so nice. I was just kind of afraid of him because he was kind of a celebrity. And then my friend's like, I know, I can't believe, it's crazy that he's a wife beater, right? And I was like, really? But they were just totally being sarcastic, the fact that he's so nice, you know? And I, for like a week, I was like, gosh, it's just really hard to believe. I was like, yeah, let's get a little bit farther away from him, like,
Yeah.
you know. And I was like, it's just really, later on, I was like, I just can't believe that guy's a wife beater. She's like, oh my God, I was just kidding. He's so nice. I just thought, so, yeah, he's
These
not.
are the things.
Just for the record, he was a wonderful, dear person who made everybody feel so special no matter. And my grandma came to the set once, and not the set, the studio. And he had a beard, and he gained a little bit of weight. My grandma, you know, a little Mexican woman, has no patience for anybody who's not, like, looking at their absolute, like they did when they were 21. And so she was like, who is that? And I was like, it's John Ritter. Remember from Three's Company? John Ritter. And she was like, oh, well, you look so different, you know? And then she's like, my grandma has a theory that if you have a beard that you're running from the law. She really feels like you're trying to, but she's like, oh, you're different, but you still have the same cute little face. Which is really, it's Mexican grandma for you gain weight.
Does she think that Portland is just where all the people go to hide from
They're
the
all
law?
congregating in Portland. Anyway.
Alright, so like last month I just got out of a wheelchair, so I was wondering what it was like to voice Korra in episodes like Korra when she was getting out of her wheelchair.
Oh yeah, Michelle, thank you for that question. It was, you know, as it was with every moment of being Korra, it was just a complete honor and a privilege. I was so impressed that Mike and Brian didn't shy away from the tough stuff. You know, I think that's something that can be a hard, kind of a fine line to walk, right? When you have a superhero, are people watching it because they want to see this person be invincible, or do they want to see their humanity come through? And when, you know, and obviously Korra was always a complicated, you know, teenage girl who was also an avatar, so she had a lot of confusing feelings and made some crazy choices. But when, you know, once we got to that point, I really appreciated that they wanted to acknowledge that she went through something very intense and severe, and that it's not, there's nothing weak, there's nothing cowardly, there's nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to needing to recover and giving yourself the opportunity to get stronger. Because that's, you know, we're all harder on ourselves than we need to be, I think. And so when you get to see somebody that you think of as a, you know, champion on some level, really struggling from something, and then seeing their way through, but not like, oh, and then I woke up the next day and I was fine. That was very comforting to me, you know, because I've gone through stuff, and I don't want to feel like I'm not, you know, back to like fighting shape the next day, that I'm like somehow a wuss, you know? So it meant a lot to me to be able to, you know, help express that to people. Like, it's really okay to go through something and to need time and care and support to get through it. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is for both of you in the characters of Azula and Korra. Before the episodes aired, did you two have a sense that the characters you were playing were going to be so iconic and groundbreaking?
I didn't know how popular Azula was until I was at a convention and I had no photos of Azula. They said, were you Azula on Avatar? I was like, well, yes, I was, peasant. What are you talking about? And they were like, oh my God. I was like, is she popular? They're like, yeah, she's really popular. And then thank God, because that's like, I think I signed more Azula than anything. I just had no idea. I've still never seen the show. I know, it's terrible. God, you guys are making me so mad. No, my 9-year-old son and I just first started watching it here. Only 2 episodes and we're still in water, and we're gonna watch the whole thing this fall. Before Christmas, we will be done, and I'm so excited. Yeah. I mean, I know how great it is because I read the scripts and did it, but I never read the scripts ahead of time. So when I actually cut all my hair off and went crazy and didn't realize I wasn't returning, I was like, oh wow, I'm not in this show anymore. That's what I need to find out right when you're about to record it. So those were real tears. It's like, I paid my mortgage.
Well, I, of course, had the benefit and I don't want to say misfortune because it's not at all, but the intimidation of having had this extraordinary series, of course, that Ray was on, precede Legend of Korra. So I knew what I was following, and boy, that's not something I would ever have taken on if it weren't Mike and Brian, you know, because it really, it's their vision, and they're so brilliant and wonderful, and they're so different from one another, and I understand, because I do that too, where I'll be like, oh, I think this version of, you know, this is better than this other version, but then that's like, if that's a remake. But if it's like the same kind of movie from the same director, it's hard not to make those comparisons. But at the same time, I think they're both so different and they're so gorgeous that I don't have a favorite because I love both of them the same, you know, for different reasons. But I did think, gosh, you know, if this doesn't go well, there's an amazing fandom out there that's going to be really unhappy. So whatever is out there on the message boards is negative. I've never seen it because I choose to come to the cons where the people are here to celebrate Bright and everybody that had the honor of doing the shows. And so it's only been positive for me since the second I found out I got the part and jumped up and down in the middle of a Joann's Fabrics because I was buying beads to make necklaces.
I love Joann's Fabrics. It's the best! Those little ladies who can't hear real, so they just fart all over Joann's.
Sure. It's a place to be free, to be me. Yeah.
There was a person with really awful BO, and I was like savoring, I was like, something's grilling onions. It's like a Philly cheesesteak, and then I realized, like, oh no, that's person's no. You just were savoring that. No, get out.
Yes. Beautiful Joann's Fabrics.
And I wanted to be on Korra so bad, and I kept auditioning for parts, but I kept going, oh, I gotta not sound like a Zula, I can't sound like a Zula, so I was so glad when they gave me a couple more. I played the waterbender Ming-Hua, and I got to play the little spirit mushroom from the lost in the woods, you know? So, spirit, which I don't remember what that sounded.
Yeah. No, I had no doubt that Grimm's gonna end up on the second series.
And
but
Henry Rollins played my boyfriend. I loved him when I was in high school. I acted like, I have that problem with celebrities where I'm so worried about making them feel uncomfortable with the attention that I give them that I just give them absolutely no attention, so I just seem like a total, you know, so I'm just like, he probably thought like,
who's that?
Because I was just like,
I think I did the exact same thing. Yeah. It goes from like, I'm just gonna respect his privacy to like, I think I was really rude to him. Why did I have done that? It was wonderful. I'm so scared. Yeah. It's funny. Ay, guys. Thank you for that. We like these.
And Janet and I were really good friends like way before she was Korra, so I was excited.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna be able to do good friendships together.
Yeah, like you guys, Ray is my VO hero, so to get to have a reason to say this.
We met at Matt Lillard's house. Matt Lillard, who it was on Scream, and he plays Shaggy on Scooby-Doo. Oh, jeepers, he's my Shaggy. And I was at his house, he lived really close to me, and I wasn't wearing a purple dress, and I wasn't solving a mystery, but I was at his house. And I met her, we just instantly just...
And we had been told for like a year prior, everyone's like, well, you must know Ray. And yeah, we were both like, this person. I'll tell you what, I'm either gonna love her or hate her. Because isn't that how it always goes? It's like
you look just like my friend, and the friend's like, you know, and I'm like, oh, really? You know, or like, you remind me of my friend, and I just need the most annoying, obnoxious person I've ever met.
This one was a good one. This one turned out, we were like, okay, all those people were right. So, phew. Yeah. Next, does anyone else have a question?
Hi.
Hi there. My question is for Gregola.
Yeah.
And
I feel like I'm on a dating game because I can't see you, so I'm like, okay, yes. What would the perfect date if we had to go?
Well, first I just want to say, like, you know, you do a lot of voices, and my favorite voice that you do is probably the one where you're just like the very high-voiced teenager, kind of stuck up like Portia from Mighty B.
Well, she's kind of like whatever.
Exactly.
And I use that voice still. Like, I just recycle that voice to be like the Sphinx on Puss in Boots. If anybody watches Puss in Boots, I'm Sphinx, whatever.
Yeah, going down that route, I remember there was this one time you did that voice on Tough Puppy, and it's like, as soon as you did that, like, oh, it's that voice!
Yeah! I love Tammy when I played Tammy. Like I did kind of thing on Tough Puppy where I played Tammy who worked in the office. She kind of had that kind of going. I don't know, but she was Southern, so
Well, yeah, I know you did several voices on the show, and they're all great. And now let me just get to my question. And the only question I have for you is, of all these different voices you do, has there ever been one or a couple that you kind of struggled to kind of get under control, like, learn how to go about emotions?
Well, Vicky on the Fairly Odd Parents, she started kind of like this. If you see the early episodes, she was really behaving herself. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Turner, I'm going to do a great job babysitting your child. And now she's pretty much belligerent all the time. And like, for God's sake, back in this episode, she's like, who was in charge? Like, who let me do that?
And do you feel that you're at the point now where you just have total mastery over your voices, like you can pull them out at any time you want?
Yes, she does.
I try not to not be that person. There are people in our industry who can't.
Look, stop talking like this. If it's everything they say is like this. It's like, you're not on an audition. You can turn it on. Where do we turn
I'm your therapist, please. This is your time and money, please.
It was hard to do Mandy, I have to say, because I'm such an effusive, bubbly person, and
Mandy just had to be like, I was doing Mandy like kind of up here, and then she's like less great. I'm like, and then I started talking, and they're like less, and I'm like, and then great.
I pretty much am just pushing air slowly through my lungs.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually don't have a question. I just feel like, can we please make some noise and applause for the girl who just got out of the wheelchair? That is freaking amazing. Awesome, really good job, but no questions, no, I just
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Just want to pull focus away from us.
Yep.
So my question is for Gray, and the question is on your role as Azula. What did you think of the Azula-Chad ship?
Chad?
Yeah, Chad, the guy in the beach episode.
Oh my God, okay. Oh, Chan. Isn't it Chan? Yeah. That's a sharp outfit, Chan. Sharp enough to puncture the hull of an Empire-class Fire Nation battleship, leaving thousands to drown at sea because it's so sharp. I could not wait to play that episode. I mean, I was telling people yesterday that when I read that script, I was like, oh my God, Azula's flirting. This is going to be so amazing. I just couldn't wait because I was like, this will be so great because then when she doesn't get her way, she's going to try to like overtake everything. And then as I'm reading the script, I'm like, yes, she is. She's like, you and I will be the most powerful couple on Earth. We will dominate. I don't know exactly what it was. Yeah, you and I will be the most powerful couple in the world. We will dominate the Earth. And he's just like, Yeah, I loved it, but I really shipped Azula though because I feel like they ran off together somewhere. Yeah, I had to bully her into being her friend because she had a little crutch, and now she's going to be forever my little cage. She only lets her out sometimes.
As for Jimin, I wanted to know your thought on the end of Korra with Korra and Asami going out to Spiro.
I loved it. I was so excited about it, and I was so happy. And Mike and Brian actually pulled Seychelles and me out when we were recording in the 4th season to kind of let us know that was something that they had kind of been heading towards, and wanted to let us know and sort of see if we were cool with it and stuff. And we both were just. It's like I was saying this at a panel a couple days ago here that on one hand, we were so excited. But that's the kind of moment too where it's very bittersweet because you're like, ain't nobody coming to pulling me out of a session to tell me that Mako and Korra are ending up together, you know what I mean? And for those of you who ship that, I totally get it, like Mako's awesome, but we just not, the fact that we don't yet live in a world where on this awesome cartoon that is not, it's not aimed, it's not a particularly sexual cartoon, it's not a particularly romantic cartoon, it's not really about that, it's about being a person and all of the ways in which that's complicated, particularly in this universe where there are all these powers kind of thrown into boot, but wow, that these two characters being in love with each other would necessitate everyone kind of speaking in hushed tones, like, okay, Korra, tell me, is that going to be okay? Is that going to offend people? Is that, you know, it's like, well, love is love, so great, let's do it, you know what I mean? And so we're just excited for that not even being a conversation anymore. That's just like, well, of course, yeah, absolutely, you know? Yeah, thank you.
It's really good about that.
Yeah.
And so my
They're very open-minded.
My son's gay, and he was like so excited on the Loud House to see 2 gay dads because he really wants to have children when he grows up. And he was just like, he was just so inspired by that. And I just think it's so important for kids to see themselves mirrored back in their media that they watch. You know? So.
You're not going to really know in the same way as one parent can tell a child something, but it's different when you're exposed to all of this media, you're exposed to all of this social culture, and if you don't know it's an option, then you don't have the opportunity to be true to yourself. And that's what's cool about these communities. I feel that we, and I include myself because I have been welcomed into this pre-existing community, we're the first line of, I won't say defense, but like, this is where things become okay first. And that, I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of you guys. I wish every place were like this, you know?
He used to get that about the McDonald's girl and boy toys. They would go like, do you want a girl toy or a boy toy? He was like, well, I want the girl toy, but I'm a boy. Yeah, so, yeah, I complained about that. I wrote to McDonald's and he was so happy. Thank you, Mom. I don't know if any of you read it.
Okay, so we're going to take our small steps.
Yeah.
Hi.
I have a question for both of you. What's the conversation between Azula and Korra be like?
A confrontation?
Yeah, between
Well, she'd be dead, of course. It wouldn't last long, I'll tell you that.
I sort of picture Korra relaxing under a tree with one eye closed, just kind of looking at Azula like, is that all you got?
One eye's closed because it's missing.
Excuse me? Naga, get her!
Naga, hi!
Nope, different.
Hi, I'm actually going to school for acting right now with hopes of becoming a voice actor, and was just wondering if you had any advice for an aspiring voice actor.
Well, you're doing the right thing, because we always say, do acting. Yeah, be in your body, be doing stuff on stage, and get the whole scope, because all of that will serve you if you specialize in voice acting, right, Greg?
There are so many people that do voices, and they'll get close and they'll get auditions and stuff, but ultimately they're going to go up against somebody who's doing the voice and has an acting background, and that's always going to, I mean, you should see Tom Kenny, the guy who plays SpongeBob. He's always like acting everything. He's the most active voiceover actor. He's always, he's totally in the moment and moving around. He's always knocking into his stand and stuff because he's just so into it. I'm just sitting there like, and then I do my line. I don't sound.
She does yours. It calls for characters. Yeah, and then improv. I would say take improv. In addition to taking like classical theater training and on-camera acting and stuff, I definitely think improv's great because you have these wonderful opportunities in these rooms recording with really, really funny, creative people, and sometimes you'll have, creative directors and voice directors that want you to play a little bit, and sometimes you'll come up with stuff together that ends up in the show, and even if it doesn't, I think it keeps the energy really fresh, and I think that's a lot of the time what people are looking for too. Like Gray says, when somebody, if you practice something so hard, and then you get it, and you're total one track, and that's all you can do, and they say, it's like, we'll do a little scene. So great, we loved your audition, thank you so much. We know that you, it's a little girl that you auditioned for, you got the part.
Yeah, it's a little girl, okay.
So she's about 10, we actually had to rewrite it, she's about 10 years older.
Oh
no! But if you could just adjust her a little so she sounds like she's 10 years older.
Well, maybe she's a little smarter now. Okay, like a little, her voice is dropped down.
Okay,
that's
great.
About 10, I guess,
Great,
right? Okay.
Yeah, and she's British.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's really nice to be here. It's been a long plane flight, and I'm happy to be here.
And she's always a little sad. She's like about to cry, always.
All these crowds make me a little bit nervous. Quite much too.
the voice of a hot dog, and it was Charlie Adler, you know, cat dog, Charlie Adler, you know Charlie Adler. But the director said, can you sound less like a hot dog and more like a hamburger? That's not how a hamburger sound, I mean, come on.
Boy, you gotta get metaphysical with some
Well, I
of that
kind of
stuff.
did think like, oh, okay. Like a hot dog would be more like that, and a hamburger would be a little more like that. Add more substance to it.
I had for actors, because I'm trying to do voice acting too, acting, modeling, music, and everything. So I guess how did you guys get started, and how did you guys kind of keep pushing yourself? Like, because I know every actor goes through those rejects and everything, and I know it takes like 20 rejects to get a part. And so I was wondering, how did you guys start, and how did you guys, like, where did you guys go? I know San Francisco is like sort of public, but I know it's like Los Angeles where a lot of people move, and that's what I was planning on moving after. So yeah, how did you guys get really started with that?
You talk. Well, because you're more of an actress. I mean, I'm an actress, but like you're more in front of me.
Well, that's the thing though, right? Is that, and if Chris were
Face
here,
acting.
he has
Oh,
a totally
face
different my face acting, occasional body acting. But if Chris were here, he would have a totally different answer, right? His background and even where he lives in Dallas is completely different than our journeys. And I think, I mean, I went to SF State. I lived in San Francisco for 10 years. I wasn't ever planning on leaving. I was doing sketch comedy here. I went to school for theater, and then I kind of loosened. I was in a band, and then I started doing sketch. And I had never thought that I could do comedy. I don't know why. I think I was like, maybe this is true for some of you, but you know how like someone tells you you're kind of good at something and that scares you so much, you're like, oh, I would rather people say you should do this than actually try to do it and be bad at it, which is like so sad. So if someone says, hey, you're really, hey, you should, you know, I love when you play guitar, like you should go do that somewhere, and you think to yourself, yeah, but then like if I do it and like no one likes it, then I'll be heartbroken. Whereas if I don't do it, I'll always think, well, I could have been great. So you know, do that thing. If you feel it in you and it scares you, push through that and just do it, because that's, you know, the stuff that I ended up being afraid of. Where I was like, oh, that might be, maybe I'm kind of funny. And then someone was like, well, be in a sketch comedy group. I was like, oh no, then I might not be funny. And so that's how I got it. So I got into comedy, and then I started I was kind of recruited for jobs up here because a lot of people in LA would sort of say, well, we're looking for something we haven't seen before. Let's say San Francisco got great talent. So they do know that, and come up, and then I moved down to LA because I started getting work. And it kind of diversified from there, and like I was saying before, doing improv and doing comedy and stuff really helped me with the voiceover that I do, and certainly the on-camera stuff that I do. But that's my main thing, is like if you, wherever you live, if you feel like you have something that you're not tapping into because it's scary, please tap into it early and often, because you'll be so glad you did, and you won't, you know, you're not going to regret it like you think you're going to.
And even if you fail at it, it might bring you to the thing that you're supposed to be doing. Because
Absolutely.
I actually wanted to do stand-up, and I was doing stand-up, and I was doing a bunch of impressions in my act, and I just wasn't that good at the stand-up part. The jokes were bad, but the impressions were pretty good. And so somebody was like, you should totally do voiceovers. You do great impressions and voices and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, okay, well, and it was really hard to break in, but once I broke in, I was like, I'm never doing stand-up again. This is the best job in the world.
That's a great point. Yeah, try everything.
Yeah,
try everything.
So you should just like maybe take it one step at a time with like, because you know, I want to be like a quadruple threat, but it's like for
It's great to have all that you can do though.
And be a quadruple threat, and you might end up as a double threat, which is still good.
Yeah, well, I actually, and this kind of like goes for anyone in here that wants to do voice acting as well. Like, don't be afraid to really say what you want to do, because I used to be like pretty shy and everything, but ever since I've been like loud about my dream, people have been like, oh, I know this guy that knows this guy. And so like through Instagram, I was able to get my first like paid gig as an extra for this upcoming Netflix series. And so, which isn't like a huge deal, of course, but it's like, it's farther than you would be, just because I had to like step up and ask like, yo, where were the auditions? Were they castings? Like, I was just asking, so.
That is another great point. Yeah, communicate and meet people and do people's stuff for free and all of that. I mean, there's a million like student films that I've done, and like, no, that's not. Art films, like actual student films.
Nobody plans
that,
to do
you
porn,
know,
really.
that I just did because I wanted to, you know, get experience. And by the way, I went to college with someone that I did like just fun, free projects with, and he became the director of Key and Peele. And I ended up doing a bunch of stuff with Keegan because I met him through improv, and Peter Atencio was our director, and I had gone to school with him. So these people that you're around, that you're excited about, that no one's making any money, and everybody's, you know, waiting tables and doing all this other stuff while they work at their dreams. Those are the people that end up making stuff. That's certainly Mike and Brian, and yeah.
Scott Ackerman, he does that show, what's it called? Like,
Comedy Bang
Comedy
Bang.
Bang Bang show. Yeah, we went to college together, we waited tables together at Chin Chin. He helped me get a job when I moved to LA, and I just did a song for him on Comedy Bang Bang. Like, he's like, hey, can I email you this song, will you sing it, and I'm gonna play it? And it was great. Yeah, so he still like, throws me bones every now and again.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks for bringing that great stuff up.
So the next question.
Hello. So Avatar, when it came out, it was hailed for being a very diverse show and a very good one at it. But then when the live action movie came out, there was a lot of backlash.
Where to begin? We don't have a panel long enough to talk about the problems.
We don't pretend like there isn't a movie.
But then even with Korra, when Legend of Korra came out, there was seemingly a significant whitening of even, say, Aang. And I guess behind the scenes, was there ever any discussion or concerns about how maybe the cast behind everything was less diverse than maybe the world and characters that it represented?
I mean, I think that's a great question, and it's an uncomfortable question for me to answer because if somebody had said to me, no, but I mean like if someone had said to me like in the moment of auditioning, and it as it happened, it was never, you know, about me versus somebody else of color. I think it was down to me and one other Caucasian girl, if I remember our kind of chemistry test correctly, not right. But if someone had said to me, like, you know, we're going to cast you the way the opportunity to cast a woman of color for this, I'm very sorry, I would have walked away from it without question. I would have absolutely said, I'm completely comfortable with that, I totally applaud that, it's not an issue for me. That's not what happened, that's never what happened. I feel like there was a fair amount of diversity in the rooms. Like, I wish that you could be in the rooms and see the faces that were coming in to do all of these different parts. Because it absolutely was not, from my perspective, it was not like a Caucasian fest, and a lot of stuff is, and I'm in comedy, so I really know what I'm talking about, because that is like, bless their hearts, it's usually like me and 20 white men in a room. But I think that's a real question, and I think that's something that is, I'm not the right person necessarily to answer, because I don't know what the answer is. All I can say is, I am very, very honored to have played someone whose skin is much darker than mine, and whose eyes happen to be the same color as mine. And I think it's incredibly important to keep that diversity going. And like Ray was saying, not just diversity in race, but also culturally and in age, you know, differences in age. I want to see more than 16-year-old girls be, you know, the stars of shows and all that kind of stuff. But that, you know, that's something that the creators are going to keep pushing towards more and more, and hopefully networks will keep pushing towards more and more, so that, like Greg was saying about her son, everybody gets to see everybody up there and know that they're okay and that they're empowered, you know. But I wish Mike and Brian were here to answer that question, because I think it's a great question, and
I remember them saying we definitely don't want Asian accents, like when we were reading for it. I remember, you know, because you see the art and you're like, oh, is it an Asian show? Like, well, maybe are they bringing in Asian actors? And they're like, no, we actually just want you to read just how you would. We're bringing in. I remember them telling me like we're bringing in every ethnicity because we don't want it to sound Asian, but
and
we don't care.
They honestly close their eyes and listen to the voice, or they stare at the piece of paper with the person on it, and they just try to see. And it's very ephemeral, you know. And they're very honest about their like, we don't know why. Sometimes we can't even name why the person just is, you know, seems to embody the soul of that character.
And also, there aren't a lot of there's not a lot of diversity in voice actors. I mean, if you've noticed, like Lauren Tom and Janice Kawai, and like maybe the girl that played on Fairly Odd Parents, who played the girl that he had a crush on, that Timmy had a crush on. What's her name? Does anyone know? Trixie Tang. Yeah, that girl, and those three actresses are like some of the only. Oh, and there's another one who I adore, and what's her name? Oh, she's on Batman with me, and she's great. Anyway, well, there's like 4 people, honestly, like 4 Asian American actresses that even do voiceover, so it's just hard. Like I actually replaced somebody when I did Puffy on the Uni. She just wasn't doing a good job acting it, and I didn't even audition for that part. What? You like that show? Yeah, we did that show, and I felt bad, but I came in at the last minute to replace her because they did want to cast a Japanese American actress, which they cast Janice, and then they had another girl, but she just wasn't acting it right, and they were desperate, so they just called me at the final hour, and I just went there to replace. And I actually had to go back and fix like 10 episodes. People are always like, how'd you get that part? And I'm like, I'm sorry that I'm playing a Japanese girl too. I felt, but it's, it's such a... girl. Yeah. I had to speak Japanese too for that, and I learned it all phonetically. It was really fun.
Thank you so much.
Anyway, so yeah, but I don't...
Thank you for answering.
Oh yeah, of course. Weird, anything like that feels like you sort of get feeling you're something like, oh no, I don't want anyone to feel like that's not there. Like we like talking about that because I think it's really important to talk about, even if you don't know what the right answer is, just to communicate about it.
And a lot of times it's budget. Like I play a lot of different ethnicities because they just only have $800 and they need to have as many parts covered as possible. So I have to play like the boy, the grandma, the little black kid, the white kid. The
mushroom.
Yeah, the mushroom. The Mexican mushroom, thank you.
Hello. Well, thanks for the nostalgia that you give me right now, like with all the voices. But just want to ask from the audience, when you're reading scripts, then doing all the voices, and what are your actual funny parts that you just remember? Because my favorite one would be from when Korra and Mako, they're kissing, but then Bolin just just crying away, running away,
So just like moments in the show itself that or when we read scripts, the stuff that we like to see.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean for me anything with Bolin, he cracks me up so much. And when they started getting into him being in movies, and we were introduced to John Michael Higgins' character when we met Vera for the first time, I was like, Julie, do the thing. Like that kills me. Everything he does makes me laugh. John Michael Higgins, everything PJ Byrne does makes me laugh. So getting to like
PJ Byrne, the original Tough Puppy.
Oh, really?
That he had the part of Tough Puppy before ever, and then Jerry Trainer replaced him.
Jerry Trainer snuck in and grabbed it. No, it's not like that at all. But yeah, so I always love that stuff, and PJ would improvise a lot, and none of the other characters really had that essence, and so I improvise all the time, but I never improvised as Korra. But he would do stuff that would sometimes end up on the show that Mike and Brian were like, well, we weren't planning on him saying that, but when he said it in the room, it was so funny. We just had to animate it. What about you? Do you have
I have to say, improv. I didn't do a lot of it. I've done a little bit of it, but I do it all the time in auditions, and I swear it's like the reason I get like half the things I do because I just like threw in some funny line or. Butch Hartman, who does Fairly Odd Parents and Tough Puppy, and Danny Phantom, who I hope it's coming back. I mean, we all want to go ghost again, right? We don't know yet, but it'd be awesome. No, he always lets me do it. He always just says, "Great, if you want to do something funny at that, that's fine." So I always get like a chance to, like when she was in love with that when Vicky had that boyfriend named Ricky, and then he left. There's a song from the 70s that, Ricky, don't lose that number. So like, I gave him my phone number, and then I thought it'd be funny if I was like, Ricky, don't lose that number! You don't want to call nobody else! You're not going to let her to yourself!
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, this question's for Janet. I love you in Legend of Korra, but it's not a Legend of Korra question. I was wondering, can you tell us anything about this year's SF Sketchfest?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is a comedy festival that I produce here in San Francisco, and this one coming up in January, it's the 12th through the 29th, will mark our 16th year, which makes me feel very old. Like if it was a child, I would be driving this year. That makes me feel really weird. That I started a very long time ago with my buddies that I was in that sketch troupe with that I was talking about. We were having a really hard time finding places to perform sketch here. We would go to like stand-up clubs and do sketch comedy, and people would like complain. They would be like, well, I don't understand what that, she was wearing a wig. That's not stand-up comedy. And so we ended up renting a theater, partnered with 5 other sketch groups, and called it a festival. And then the next year we invited people from all over to come with their groups, and invited a couple of like more kind of famous people who for some reason believed in us enough to come. And we've just been growing it out from there. And we do a lot of kind of animation stuff. Gray hasn't been able to come because she has a family and a million jobs, as you can hear, but she certainly will at some point. We do, panels, we do screenings, we do TV reunions, we do film, we do music, and so we're in the middle of booking now, so I don't think there's anyone that I can just like for sure say, other than I promised that we would do something with Dragon Ball Z, because Chris loves coming to San Francisco, and he and I are really close friends, so we were like, we want to hear Vegeta do something funny at SF Sketchfest, so we're working on that. And we also do this thing called, there's this comedian named Doug Benson, and he does this thing called the Benson Movie Interruption, where we run the big Castro Theater. For those of you who know it, it's 1,400 seat, and we show a movie. Last year in October, we showed Back to the Future 2, and he had comedians just talk all the way through it and make jokes and stuff, and it's super, super fun. I think we're gonna do one of those. But there will be like over 200 shows, and there will definitely be voiceover actors that you know and love, either doing the characters you love or doing something you had no idea they ever did in comedy.
They were doing Adventure Time, and they didn't ask the ice queen to come.
I don't know how that
didn't even. And we're really good friends. She was like, "Oh, we're doing Adventure Time stuff." And anyway,
cool program, that one.
I actually can't come because I'm actually having a baby, not from my body, but someone else's. I got really sick with my last baby, and we really wanted another baby, so this woman, we rented her, and she's really wonderful.
But anyway, we're gonna have her come and do the Adventure Time thing, which is weird. Yeah, so come out. I'm there basically the whole month, and if I'm not performing in a show, I'm at the show and introing it and making sure everyone's having fun and eating popcorn and stuff. So hope to see you guys there.
Awesome. Next question over here. I have a question for Janet. You've played Korra, who's an avatar and the hero of the spirit world and the human world and an LGBT icon. And you've also played Becca on You're the Worst. And I love that show, but everyone on that show is an objectively awful human being.
Absolutely, just terrible.
Do you have a preferred character archetype that you enjoy playing more than the other?
Thank you. That's a great question. I think Ray should answer this too, because she plays all the goodies and the baddies too, and it's really fun. I mean, Korra is the most challenging, fulfilling acting job I've had on camera or off, because there was so much that happened to her, and so it was very textured, like very rich experience of getting to do that, even though I wasn't doing it on camera and wearing the clothes and having superpowers coming out of my hands, as I tried to in that Kickstarter thing that some of you have seen, where I tried to turn on the water on my sink. No, it didn't work out. But I do love playing villains, don't you, Gray? It is really fun. It's fun because that's not like this character Becca is just everything that I hate. She's so superficial. The only way she feels good is by sort of making other people feel. Oh, so you decided to wear that? Oh, well, good luck. Just terrible. And it's just fun because she's just awful. But I get a lot of the fan mail that I get from that show is like, congratulations on successfully making me want to slap you every time you walk on the screen. And I'm like, thank you! I'm doing my job. So it's fun. It's really fun to get to play both. The hardest part is if you get typecast and you're like, oh, this again, and that happens a lot in Hollywood, right? It's like, oh, we've seen that guy play a sheriff. We know we can play our sheriff. And then he wants a job, so he's like, okay, so I'm playing another sheriff, and then that just keeps happening. So you've noticed that a lot. It's like, how many, there's some
a new sheriff in town, but it's not a new sheriff.
That's right.
Me again.
That's right. That's right. That's why I can't believe someone gave me the chance to play a sheriff, because no one's gonna take that seriously. But yeah, so that's what's so fun is getting to kind of hang out in all of those worlds. So it's hard to choose, because if I only ever played villains, I'd probably be like, it'd be really nice to play someone like nice and benevolent for a change, you know?
I played just a lot of villains, and I love it. It never gets old. I was like, a villain again? Awesome. I'm doing Nare on this new Lego Freemaker Adventures. I don't know if any of you've seen it, but it's a really cool. I don't know if she's a villain yet as it's aired, but spoilers. She starts out really nice, and then later on, like, oh, you're nice as well. But I loved it. I was telling Kelly yesterday that when I was little, I used to say that I was the devil and go. I was like 4 and I did this devil laugh, and I had everyone in my preschool class convinced that I was possessed. So.
And you don't, I mean, listen, and this is all due respect, I'm just speaking metaphorically, but that's very like devilish, right? You sort of imagine the devil being like, I'm so happy. No one is like, I'm God! Like, well, why isn't he having as much fun as this other guy?
No, it's not as much fun. I used to practice my screams when I was little too. Like, I feel like I was always preparing for this job. I just didn't know what this job was because when I was like maybe 8 or 9, I took the hall pass. I was like really bored in class because I had ADD, and I was just like, I can't concentrate. I'm gonna go practice my screams. So I went and got the hall pass and like took it to the bathroom. I was just in there at 8 years old, just like absolute blood-curdling screams. And the teacher and the janitor like ran in, like, what's going on? Are you okay? Are you okay? And then I started crying because I knew something was bad about what I just did. And they were like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm practicing my screams. And they were like, why would you do that? Why? I remember the teacher kind of shaking my shoulders, and I was like, I don't know. And then later on, then I got hired only to scream because I do a pretty good like horror scream. I did it, and it never hurts my voice. I'm gonna do it right now. Let's hear it. This microphone, but
it really is hard to do this without shredding your voice. So to be able to do it and be like, fine, that's great. Yeah.
When I'm 8 years old in the bathroom, really.
I can't believe how much Homeland Security we've seen here and no one just rushed in. They're like, this is why we're here!
Great security.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
They all get excited, there's something to do.
Well, that actually concludes our time right here. I'm so sorry.
Ending on a scream, I'm sorry.
That flew by. You two are absolutely wonderful.
No, we just went on forever and ever and didn't get to anyone else's questions, so that's totally on us.
Thank you for your time. That was fantastic. These two will actually be.
Let's just do one more. I'm sorry.
Okay. Being a voice acting wannabe myself, I'm probably I'm probably also one of the lucky ones who actually had a real voice actor come through school. and he actually also gave a few pointers, and he also did a few little noises he's going back and forth like.
Oh, that's a good one. That's deep Bradley Baker level.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's actually what I was gonna say. Yeah, that's what I was actually gonna say. Actually, the guy that I met, his name, I think his name is Michael Pritchard. Oh. Michael Pritchard, the Star Wars. And of course, he gave me a few warm-up ideas, and I was just wondering if you have like any warm-up ideas yourselves, like you do.
I have to say I never warm up, and when people sit on a panel with me and say that they do warm-up exercises, I'm like, you're such a liar. I work with you. You don't do warm-up exercises.
You just do like warm-up first, or otherwise you're going to goof up.
I don't. I never warm up. I'm a hack. I drink a lot of milk and cheese and all the things they say you're not supposed to do, and I'm like, let's get going.
Okay, because he is like the very first voice actor I've ever like really met, so maybe...
I'm not saying he's a liar, I'm just saying I feel that. It's like, poor Michael Pritchard.
So meeting you, like, I can't say.
Well, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I think that's a good way to think of it. And find out which way, works for you and feels right.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. Thanks
so guys.
Round of applause for lovely Janet. They're going to be right next to store in Golden Gate C to take selfies and sign autographs. That's right over here if you guys want to say hi again. Thank you for coming to our panel. Enjoy the rest of Comic-Con.
Oh, man. Huh.